I have some music on, so I have it low, so hopefully you all can hear me and still hear the music. We're just testing it out today. But good afternoon. It is Amisha, Pieces of Mish, aka Yoga Mish, your favorite yoga teacher in training. And I wanted to come on today for a slow and gentle lower back and hip practice. I noticed for myself, especially this week, I've been carrying a lot of tension in my lower back and my hips, especially like in my hips. And this morning I flowed through a couple of movements and found some relief for myself. So I wanted to get on here and see if I could share that practice that I moved through this morning with you all in hopes that it can bring some physical relief, emotional relief, or whatever type of relief you need into your space and into your body. So, yeah, I wanted to hop on here, and I mean, who doesn't want to just teach yoga all day? But no, so yeah, that's that. So, as we get into this practice, we will be on our hands and knees most of the time, if not the whole time. So, I would suggest that if you are expecting, you do not do this practice. There are plenty of prenatal classes on this platform that you can do. And everything that I say is a suggestion. So, please be safe. Please listen to your body before you listen to me. And like I said, we are going to move slowly. We are going to move intentionally. So if that is not your vibe, this may not be the video for you. And as always, if you're watching the recording, please check down in the comments to see what time the actual practice starts. But like I said, and I'm going to say it again, everything is a suggestion. Please listen to your body. Please read the disclaimer in the chat. And please like the video if you found this practice useful. Okay? So we're going to get started in our child's pose. Now, I did say we're going to be on our hands and knees a lot. So if you do need a blanket, feel free to get a blanket. And I'll just show you what that looks like before we get started. So, because you may need some support under your knees in your child's pose. So if that's the case, you can take your blanket, place it under your knees, and to get our child's pose, we'll bring our big toes together to touch, knees as wide as the mat or as wide as we need them. Hands out in front of us, palms flat on the ground. We'll take an inhale, and we'll exhale, pushing back, sinking into our child's pose. Now I'm going to move my blanket because I don't want it, but that's just for if anyone needs a blanket. So moving into our child's pose, inhaling and exhaling. And if you need your child's pose to be restorative today, feel free to stack your fists on top of one another and allow your forehead to rest on top of your fist. So finding the child's pose that feels good in your body. I invite you to find that right now. And while we're in our child's pose, I invite you to take this time to ground into your breath. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling out of your mouth. And as you inhale and exhale, I invite you to find a deep belly breath with that inhale and exhale. So as you inhale, feeling your stomach expand. And on your exhale, releasing everything and allowing your stomach to contract, almost like you're trying to bring your belly button to meet your spine. Inhaling, finding a big belly, and exhaling, letting your stomach contract, allowing your belly button to reach your spine. And continuing that big belly breath according to your own breath cycle. And before we invite any movement into our practice today, I'm going to invite you to set an intention for your practice. So connecting with your heart, connecting with your breath, what are your intentions for your time here today on your mat? In today's practice, we'll be releasing from our lower back and from our hips. So what kind of care and support do you need at this moment to find release? Inhaling and exhaling. And when you're ready, we'll inhale, pushing out of our child's pose into our tabletop. And if this is your first time doing your tabletop, you want to make sure that we're being safe in our bodies and finding the right alignment. So pushing away from our mat, hands flat on the ground, palms open. Your toes can be curled or your feet can be resting on your mat, the top of your feet. Having your wrist align with your elbows, align with your shoulders, and your knees in line with your hips. Inhaling and exhaling in your tabletop. And from your tabletop, we'll invite some cat-cows into our practice. So inhaling, bring your chest forward, poking your bum out, finding your cow. And on the exhale, arching your back, tucking your pelvis in, letting your head hang heavy, pushing away from your mat. Cat. Inhaling, letting your chest come forward, pushing away from the mat, poking your tail out. And on the exhale, curling, tucking your pelvis in, arching your back, letting your head hang heavy. And I invite you to continue that cat-cow according to your own breath. Inhaling, letting your chest come forward. And exhale, arching your back. Finding your cat-cow, continuing to move according to your own breath. And if you feel like you found enough movement in your cat-cow, I invite you to find your child's pose again. Coming back into a tabletop position, bringing your big toes together, knees as wide as the mat or as not as wide as you need them. Bringing your palms out in front of you, taking an inhale, and exhale, sinking back down into your child's pose. Inhaling and exhaling. Remembering to breathe in your child's pose. And as you inhale, noticing your breath flowing in through your nostrils, down to your lungs to fill up your belly. And on your exhale, releasing all the way from your belly. And when you're ready, we're going to inhale, pushing back up into our tabletop. And we're going to find our child's pose again. So inhaling, letting our chest come forward, poking our tail out. And on the exhale, arching your back, letting your head hang heavy. Remembering to push away from our mat. Finding a strong foundation with our hands and knees and our feet on the ground. And if you're coming into the live, feel free to like the video. And when you're ready, we'll find stillness in our cat-cow, back in our tabletop position. And I invite you to find some hip circles in your cat-cow. So what that looks like is on the inhale, when we arch our back and bring our chest forward, we'll also take our hips and move them to the right. And on the exhale, we'll arch our back into our cat. And as we're arching, we'll bring our hips down in our arch to our opposite hip. And on the exhale, we'll tuck. Y'all get the vibe? So on our inhale, we're inhaling, we're arching, we're bringing our hips to the right. And we're exhaling, tucking our pelvis, letting our head hang heavy, allowing our hips to move to the left side of our body. So inhaling and arching and moving our hips to the right. Exhale, tucking, letting our hips guide to the left. So continuing those hip circles, that hip circle cat-cow, according to your own breath. Good job. I don't know about y'all, but this is the one for me. I don't even know if y'all could hear that, but my hip just just pop. But remembering to be safe. If this hurts, please don't do it. And remember that you can always go back into your child's pose for rest. And if you feel like you've done enough on this side, I invite you to bring your hip circles in the opposite direction. So we're arching our back, letting our hips come to the left. And on the exhale, we're tucking our pelvis, letting our hips glide over to the right side of our body. So doing that same movement we just did in the opposite direction, finding those hip circles in our cat-cows. And remembering that you can find child's pose whenever you need it. This is your practice. And everything that I say is a suggestion. Good job. And if you're coming into the room, feel free to join the practice, or feel free to like the video and help it circulate around the YouTube platform. I would greatly appreciate that. And when you're ready, if you think you found enough movement on both sides, you can find stillness in your tabletop, or you can keep going, whatever feels good in your body, but we'll find stillness in our tabletop. We'll bring our big toes together, knees as wide as the mat, hands extended out in front of us. Take an inhale and exhale back into our child's pose. And we've been putting a lot of pressure on our wrist because we've been in hands and knees. So I invite you to find some, while we're in our child's pose, find some wrist, I guess you could call them wrist rolls, rolling out your wrist to one direction. Make sure you guys can see a little bit. And then rolling out your wrist in the opposite direction. And when you're ready, keeping your big toes together and your knees as wide as the mat. On our inhale, I invite you to inhale, and just only walking your hands up and the top of your body upright. Letting your hands rest on the mat, and we're going to keep our knees wide and our feet together. And we're just going to find, I guess, like a cat-cow in this position. Really focusing on our lower back and our hips. So what I like to do is on the inhale, let me turn to the side so you all can see me. I don't know what happened. For some reason it got disconnected. So I'm not sure where we left off, but that's what happens when you're live. So I don't know if you all were able to see that movement, but what we're doing is with our big toes together, knees wide, hands out in front of us. We're inhaling, arching our back, poking out our tail, and on the exhale, or tucking it, letting your head hang heavy. So, like I said, much like a cat-cow, but we are keeping our legs in this child's pose position. And remembering that you can go back into your child's pose whenever you're ready. When you feel like you've had enough, on our exhale, whole exhale, and walk our hands and walk the top of our body back down to the ground into our child's pose. Inhaling and exhaling. And when you're ready, I invite you on your next inhale to inhale, pushing yourself back up, keeping your big toes together, knees as wide as the mat, but this time we'll keep our hands out in front of us in our child's pose. And we're going to work between a sequence of like coming up and then coming back down into our child's pose. So what I mean is, and if you need to look at me, please take a look at me. When you inhale, you're coming up, and exhale, pelvis tuck, pushing away from our mat, and inhaling and exhaling and coming back down to our child's pose. So inhaling, exhale, pelvis tuck, and inhaling, then exhale, sinking back into our child's pose. So continuing that according to your own breath and making sure you all understand what I'm saying. So I'll turn to the side so you can see it better. But in our child's pose, and from there we're inhaling, tucking our pelvis, and exhale, coming back down into our child's pose. So finding that according to your own breath, moving slowly and moving with intention. And remembering that if that is not in your practice today, you can always go back to your child's pose. you're ready, we'll exhale back down to our child's pose. Inhaling and exhaling. And like we did before, rolling out our wrist, since we've been on them a lot throughout our practice. And remembering our child's pose is a restful position. So finding that deep inhale that we found earlier, filling up our belly, and on the exhale, releasing it all. Good job. And when you're ready, we'll inhale. This time pushing back into our tabletop position. Inhaling and exhaling. And from our tabletop, we'll take an inhale. And on the exhale, step that right foot back, landing on the ball of your right foot. Inhaling and exhaling. I want to inhale, lifting that right foot off the mat, toes facing down on the ground, extending our leg behind us, pushing away from our mat, making sure our hips stay in line with our mat. Our hips are facing down towards the ground, not coming up, but facing down towards the ground. And we'll inhale, and on the exhale, I invite you to bring your knee to your chest. And we're going to arch our back and let our head hang heavy. So inhaling, extending your leg behind you, letting your head be extension of your neck. And on your exhale, bring your knee towards your chest, arching your back, letting your head hang heavy, remembering to push away from your mat. And continuing that movement according to your own breath. Moving intentionally, moving slowly, and most importantly, breathing. You got it. And we'll inhale and extend that foot. And on the exhale, we'll bring it down to the mat, bending that knee back into our tabletop. Bringing our big toes together, knees as wide as the mat, hands out in front of us. Inhaling and exhale. Back down into our child's pose. Good job. Just build a little bit of heat. A little bit of heat. And as always, feel free to roll out your wrist. Rolling your wrist in one direction and in the opposite direction. And in your mind's eye, getting ready to prepare for that same movement on the opposite side of our bodies. So when you're ready, we'll inhale back up into our tabletop. Inhaling and exhaling, finding our breath. We'll inhale, and on the exhale, we'll step that left foot back, landing on the ball of our left foot. Pushing away from our mat, finding a sturdy base, touching the ground below us. And on the inhale, we'll inhale that left foot up behind us, letting our toes face down towards the mat, making sure our hips are also facing down towards the mat. We don't want to open up. We want our hips square with our mat in front of us. Pushing away from your mat, letting your head be an extension of your neck. Remembering to breathe, inhaling and exhaling. And on your next exhale, we'll exhale, bringing that left knee in towards our chest, arching our back, letting our head hang heavy. Inhaling, letting that left foot come back behind us, pushing away from our mat, letting our head be an extension of our neck. Exhale, arching, bringing your knee to your chest. And exhale, extending. And just finding that according to your own breath, moving slowly. Good job. You got it. And if you are in here and enjoying the practice, please feel free to like the video. And we'll extend that foot back, and on the exhale, bringing our toes back down to the ground, bending our knee, bringing our big toes together, knees as wide as the mat, hands all ahead of us. Inhale, and we'll exhale, back down into our child's pose. Remembering to roll out your wrist if you need to. Inhaling and exhaling. Good job. And when you're ready, we'll inhale back up into our tabletop. And from our tabletop, we're going to go right into laying flat on our stomachs. So safely moving to lay down in your stomach, getting there however you need to. And once we get down to the ground, I invite you to stack your forearms on top of one another and allow your forehead to rest there. Inhaling and exhaling. And while we're here, finding that deep inhale and exhale that we found earlier. Inhaling through our nose, letting our breath go all the way through our nostrils, down our throat, into our chest to fill up our bellies. And on the exhale, Allowing that breath to release from your belly to your chest, through your mouth or through your nose. And when you're ready, we're going to invite some movement in this position. So on your inhale, I invite you to inhale, bending your knees, letting your feet come up in the air like you're walking on the ceiling. And we're going to find a gentle sway with our feet from side to side. So take an inhale, and on the exhale, let your feet sway to one side of your body. Inhaling your feet back to center, and exhale, letting your feet sway to the opposite side. So just finding a gentle sway, inhaling and exhaling, and moving according to your own breath. Exhaling to one side, inhaling to center, and exhaling to the opposite side. And when you're ready, we'll find stillness with our feet in the center. Taking an inhale, and on the exhale, I invite you to drop your feet back down to the ground. Finding our breath, inhaling and exhaling. And on your next inhale, we're going to inhale, lifting our right foot off the ground, just like our foot, our calf. And on the exhale, we're going to drop it back down to the ground, but making sure our toes are facing the long edge of our mat. And if you need to look at me, go ahead and take a look. Inhaling and exhaling. And we'll take an inhale. And on your exhale, slowly sliding your foot, your leg, your knee towards your elbow. Inhaling and exhaling. And while we're in this position, inhaling and exhaling, noticing where we can invite ease into our body. Noticing if you're holding any tension anywhere. And seeing if you can invite your breath into that space. So inhaling, and as you breathe, notice where you're holding that tension or discomfort, whatever you feel in your body. And allowing it to soften on every exhale. Inhaling and exhaling. Good job. And taking an inhale And on the exhale, I invite you to slide that right foot back down to meet your other foot. Laying flat on the ground, inhaling and exhaling. And on your next inhale, inhaling your knees, feet up into your knees. And exhaling, finding that gentle sway again. Inhaling your feet to center, exhaling to one side of your body. Inhaling your feet to center and exhaling to the opposite. And when you're ready, we'll find stillness with our feet in the center, taking an inhale. And we'll exhale, dropping our feet back down to the ground. Finding our breath. And if you've had one hand stacked on the other, I invite you to do the opposite. So I had my right hand stacked on my left. So this time I'm going to stack my left hand on top. And we're going to prepare to do that same stretch we did on the opposite side, on the left side of our body. So finding our inhale, inhaling and exhaling. We're going to inhale, lifting that left foot up off the ground. And on your exhale, dropping your left foot back down to the ground, but making sure your left toes are facing the long edge of your mat. Finding an inhale and an exhale. And we'll inhale. And on your next exhale, exhaling and slowly sliding your knee up like you're trying to bring your left knee to meet your elbow. Inhaling and exhaling. Remembering to breathe. And noticing any sensations that may be coming up for you in your body right now. If your body's asking you to come out of this position, that's okay. That is okay. But if you are here, how can you find ease in this position? Noticing any spaces where you may be holding any tension or holding on to anything, and allowing your breath to guide you to release. Visualizing your breath coming in through your body, finding that space where you may be holding, directing your breath there on the inhale, and on the exhale, finding release. Noticing if you can soften with every exhale. Allowing what comes up to come up, noticing it and releasing it. Knowing you don't have to carry, you don't have to carry that with you. You can let it go right now. Inhaling and exhaling. You got it. And when you're ready, we're going to come out of this position by inhaling. And on the exhale, sliding that left foot back down our mat to meet our right foot. Inhaling and exhaling. And on your next inhale, we're going to inhale, bending our knees, bringing our feet towards the sky. And exhale, letting our feet sway to one side of our bodies. Inhaling to center and exhale, letting our feet sway to the opposite side. And noticing if you feel any difference in your sway, any difference in your lower back, any difference in your hips, just noticing. Inhaling and exhaling. When you're ready, we'll find stillness in our sway. Bring our feet back to the center, inhaling and exhale, letting our feet drop back down to the ground. Good job. And as we come towards the end of our practice, we're going to slowly transition to our final resting pose. So if this feels good for you, laying on your stomach, feel free to stay here. But if something else is in your practice, then I invite you to find that now. Moving slowly, moving intentionally. So I'm going to move into my back for my final resting pose. So for me to get there, I'm going to inhale, pushing myself back up into my tabletop. Moving slowly, inhaling and exhaling. And from my tabletop, I'm going to find a seat. And from my seat, I'm going to make my way to my back. So let's see, we got about 10 minutes in our practice. So let's shoot for like a 7-minute final resting pose. So if that's in your practice, feel free to stay. But finding your final resting pose, and if you are laying on your back, giving yourself some space to expand. And if you still feel like you need some final movements before you go into your final resting pose, feel free to give yourself that. Feel free to do that right now. And that could look like, hugging your knees against your chest, child's pose. So what final movements can you give your body before we go into rest? Feel free to do that now. Okay. So we're going to go into final resting pose for 7 minutes, and I will introduce my voice back to the space when it's time to move on. fingers and toes. Noticing your body on the mat. Noticing the room around you. Coming back into our bodies. Finding a gentle sway in your ankles. When you're ready, we're going to inhale, bending that right knee, letting our right foot rest on our mat. Inhale, lifting that right arm up above our heads. And on the exhale, we're going to roll over to the right side of our bodies, finding a fetal position. Inhaling and exhaling, moving slowly, preparing to push up into a seated pose where we will close out today's practice. Inhaling and exhaling, moving slow. And on your next inhale, pushing away from your mat, letting your head come up last. We're going to find a seated pose together, whatever a comfortable seat looks like for you. Moving slowly, letting your head be the last thing to come up. Finding your comfortable seat and finding your breath. Let's inhale, our arms up overhead, and we'll exhale, letting our arms drop back down to our sides. Inhale, bring our arms up overhead, and exhale, letting our arms drop back down to our sides. And we'll inhale our arms up overhead one more time, and this time we'll bring our hands to touch together at the top. Exhaling, hands in prayer pose, letting our thumbs rest against our chest, against our heart. Finding our breath, inhaling and exhaling. Thank you so much for joining me for today's practice. This was I think I called it a slow and steady or gentle lower back and hip relief. So it was my intention to share my practice with you, that you found some relief through this practice, and I hope you did. And if you did, please feel free to like the video. That helps circulate it around the YouTube platform. And who knows, someone else who may find this practice useful may run into it. So thank you so much for joining me in today's practice. This was Yoga with Mish, and I will catch you next time. We'll take an inhale together. And on the exhale, forward fold, any amount. Inhaling back up. And on the exhale, releasing our hands back down to our lap. And that's today's practice, you all. So thank you so much again for joining me. This practice will be available on my Yoga with Mish playlist. And I will be back again, but I hope you all found some relief. You found this practice useful. And feel free to like and comment and subscribe for more Yoga with Mish practices. Enjoy your weekend.